Understanding the CSS box model is a great first step to moving towards layout in our HTML and CSS designs. The box model refers to the spacing properties around every HTML element. So, you'll be familiar with the terms margins and padding, but we can apply those properties to every HTML element in our designs. Let's have a look at all of the box model properties, and we'll do that around maybe the H1 element in this HTML here. So let's select it and add our curly brackets for our declaration. And we're going to add in some margin. So basically our properties that we can incorporate are margin, border and padding. Starting with the padding is outside the, so I might start with padding actually. Padding is directly outside the element. So we've got our element here, and then around the element is our padding, and I'll just add in maybe 30 pixels of padding. And you can see now that we've got like heaps of space around that element. If I gave my HTML element a background color, and we'll be getting used to writing with some American syntax in our CSS and HTML. I'll give that background color of yellow. See that the padding the padding is included in that background color. So I'll just take the padding off, and you'll see that it'll compress down. We'll add it back on. 30 pixels of padding. Now let's add another element to another property to our element, another property from the box model, and that is going to be border. Now border, you need to include a few values. So a border has a color, and it also has a width, like a stroke width. So I'm going to add like a 2 pixel stroke width, and it's going to be red, and it's also got to have a stroke type, because you can have dotted and dashed borders. I'm going to have a solid border. So you can see now that I've got, just pull that open so that's a bit more readable. Padding of 30 pixels. Let's make this 8, so it's a bit bigger. Maybe even 12. I've got a border of 12 pixels that's red and solid running around my element. And the last thing is margin. And so margin is kind of some further space around an element, but it doesn't incorporate the element's background color. So if I added 40 pixels of margin around that element, you see now that we have that, that kind of clear space around the element, which is pretty good. So you can see plenty of potential for spacing and changing the kind of rhythm and alignment of elements in your page. Another thing that I should point out is that when I added these increments of these values for each of these properties, for example, our padding property there, I've done it with one value, which is like a global value for the top, right, bottom, and left. And so when we think about the each of the faces of an element, we think about it clockwise like that, starting from the top, then the right, then the bottom, and then the left. We can actually give a value for each of those. So if I write 30 pixels, 30 pixels, and 30 pixels, that is the same as writing just 30 pixels, okay? But if I have 0 padding at the top, 0 padding first and then 30, 30, 30, it means that I've got the padding 30 pixels all the way around just the right, bottom and left hand side. And we can do that for our border and also our margin, for example. We can also add just two values in. So for the top and the bottom and the left and right. So if I write it like this, you can see now that my element has 40 pixel margin top, bottom, and 100 pixel margin on the right and left. So that's a really quick intro to the CSS box model, which I'm sure you'll be using very frequently.